Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin, how many families he had sex with, and how trickily he used to seduce women from family of Russians in 69 in the small village of Pokrovskoye, Siberia, Russia, was a man whose life reads more like myth than history. His parents, Efim Yakovlevich and Anna Vasilievna, were simple peasant farmers. Despite their modest means, Rasputin's early life was marked by peculiar events that hinted at his future infamy. He had several siblings, but most of them died young, a common fate in 19th century rural Russia, leaving Rasputin with a sense of solitude that shaped his character. As a child, Rasputin was considered odd by his peers, exhibiting an unusual ability to read people's emotions and behavior. This led to whispers about him possessing mystical powers, a reputation that only grew as he aged. His formal education was negligible. He remained illiterate until adulthood, a fact that shaped his rustic mannerisms and speech, yet this lack of formal learning never hindered his ability to manipulate and influence those around him. Rasputin married Praskovia Dubrovina in 1887, and the couple had 3 children who survived to adulthood: Dmitry, Maria, and Varvara. Despite his family life, Rasputin's name would soon become synonymous with scandal. In 1897, Rasputin experienced a profound religious conversion. Leaving his family behind, he embarked on a pilgrimage that took him across Russia and beyond. This spiritual journey introduced him to fringe sects and mystical practices, which he absorbed and adapted. By the early 1900s, Rasputin had gained notoriety as a starets, or wandering holy man, offering spiritual guidance and healing. However, his rise to prominence began in 1905, when he entered the imperial circle of Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra. The Romanovs, desperate for a cure for their son Alexei's hemophilia, turned to Rasputin. His apparent ability to alleviate Alexei's suffering cemented his position in the royal court. Historians speculate that Rasputin's calming influence over Alexandra and his psychological effect on Alexei played significant roles in these miraculous recoveries. However, his growing influence over the Tsarina, combined with his unorthodox behavior, provoked fierce resentment among the nobility and clergy. Rasputin was a paradox. While he projected an image of piety and humility, his personal life was rife with debauchery. Eyewitness accounts describe orgies, heavy drinking, and allegations of seducing women who sought his spiritual counsel. He justified his licentious behavior with the belief that sinning and repenting brought one closer to God. This duality made him both revered and reviled. Numerous noblewomen, including Anna Virabova, a close confidant of the Tsarina, became his ardent supporters. Whether these relationships were purely spiritual or sexual remains a subject of debate, but the rumors alone were enough to tarnish the Romanovs' reputation. Was closely associated with the Russian imperial family, particularly Tsar Nicholas II and his wife, Tsarina Alexandra. While Rasputin became a confidant of the royal family, especially Tsarina Alexandra, due to his perceived healing abilities, there is no confirmed evidence of him having sexual relations with the Tsarina or other women in the royal family. However, Rasputin's controversial influence, and his relationships with various women in the Russian aristocracy have been the subject of speculation and rumors. These rumors were often fueled by his reputation and the intense secrecy surrounding his personal life, but it's important to distinguish between the sensationalized accounts and the historical facts. Rasputin was assassinated in 1916, and the true nature of his relationship with the royal family remains a topic of debate. Among historians, Rasputin's enemies accused him of espionage, heresy, and manipulating the Tsarina to influence state affairs. During World War I, his involvement in political decisions, particularly his advocacy for dismissing capable ministers in favor of his chosen candidates, exacerbated the public's discontent with the monarchy. Despite his lack of formal education or political acumen, Rasputin wielded immense power, a fact that horrified the Russian elite. Rasputin's physical appearance added to his mystique. Tall and imposing with piercing blue eyes and an unkempt beard, he exuded a primal energy that captivated his followers. His crude manners and disregard for social norms further distinguished him from the refined aristocracy. Despite his rough exterior, Rasputin was reportedly charming and persuasive, qualities that allowed him to navigate the treacherous waters of the imperial court. His lavish lifestyle, funded by gifts from his wealthy patrons, stood in stark contrast to his humble origins. Rasputin traveled extensively, visiting cities across Russia and even venturing to Jerusalem. He rarely used modern conveniences, preferring traditional Russian bathhouses and eschewing Western-style hygiene. Despite his eccentricities, he maintained a network of influential supporters who shielded him from his detractors. By 1916, Rasputin's enemies had reached a breaking point. A group of nobles led by Prince Felix Yusupov conspired to assassinate him. On December 30, 1916, Rasputin was lured to Yusupov's palace under the pretense of a social gathering. The details of his murder are the stuff of legend: poisoned wine and cakes that failed to kill him, gunshots that only incapacitated him, and finally his body being thrown into the icy Neva River. An autopsy revealed that Rasputin died from drowning, a testament to his almost superhuman endurance. Rasputin's death marked the beginning of the end for the Romanov dynasty. The public's perception of him as a symbol of the monarchy's corruption contributed to the revolutionary fervor that culminated in the Russian Revolution of 1917. Despite his controversial life, Rasputin's children and descendants lived relatively obscure lives. Maria Rasputin, for instance, emigrated to Europe and later to the United States, where she worked as a cabaret dancer and a lion tamer. The wealth Rasputin amassed during his lifetime was modest compared to the fortunes of his aristocratic contemporaries. After his death, his possessions were seized by the state, and his family received no inheritance. However, his legacy endures in popular culture, inspiring countless books, films and documentaries. Notable cinematic portrayals include Rasputin, The Mad Monk, 1966, and the animated feature Anastasia, 1997, which fictionalizes his role in the Romanovs' downfall. Rasputin's life defies easy categorization. He was neither wholly good nor entirely evil, but a complex figure shaped by the turbulent times in which he lived. His ability to rise from obscurity to become one of the most influential figures in Russian history is a testament to his charisma and cunning. His story continues to captivate audiences, serving as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and blind faith. Rare facts about Rasputin reveal the enigmatic nature of his character. Rasputin claimed to have seen visions of the Virgin Mary, which he believed guided his spiritual journey. He was once attacked by a peasant woman who stabbed him in the stomach, an injury he survived despite severe blood loss. Rasputin's supposed ability to hypnotize others was so renowned that even skeptics feared his gaze. His murderers reportedly heard him muttering prayers as they disposed of his body. Rasputin's infamous letter to the Tsarina, predicting his death and the fall of the Romanov dynasty, is considered one of the most chilling documents in Russian history. Ultimately, Rasputin's wealth was negligible compared to his influence. He left no fortune for his descendants, who scattered across the globe. His burial site remains unknown, adding another layer of mystery to his legend. Rasputin's life and death continue to spark debate, ensuring his place as one of history's most controversial figures. The exact number of women Rasputin had intimate relations with is unknown, as much of his personal life is shrouded in rumor and exaggeration. Historical records and accounts from his contemporaries suggest that he had numerous affairs, often with women from various social classes, including noblewomen, aristocrats and commoners. Here is a breakdown based on historical accounts and speculation. Noblewomen and aristocrats. Anna Virabova, a close confidant of Tsarina Alexandra. While there is no conclusive evidence of a sexual relationship, rumors and accusations were rampant, partly because of her devotion to Rasputin. Other unnamed court ladies. Several women from the Russian nobility reportedly sought Rasputin's spiritual guidance and fell under his influence. Their names were often omitted to avoid scandal. Status and background of the women. Nobility. Many women who sought Rasputin's attention were from noble or aristocratic families. They were drawn to his supposed mystical abilities and charisma. Commoners. Women of lower social status, including servants and peasants, were also reportedly part of Rasputin's circle. They often came to him for healing or spiritual advice and became entangled in his influence. Context of relationships. Rasputin justified his behavior using the belief that sin was necessary for spiritual redemption, leading him to engage in debauchery. Some relationships may have been platonic or spiritual, but his reputation for promiscuity led to widespread rumors about his sexual conquests, known associates. Historical records are vague on specific names and many allegations lack substantiation. The nobility's accusations against Rasputin often stemmed from their disdain for his influence over Tsarina Alexandra and the Romanov family, making it difficult to distinguish truth from slander. Would you like me to focus on more documented instances, analyze his rumored relationships further, or explore the political implications of his affairs? Grigory Rasputin's ability to seduce women, both noble and common, stemmed from a combination of psychological, social, and personal factors. Here are the core reasons why he succeeded in captivating so many women. 1. Charismatic personality. Rasputin exuded a raw, magnetic charisma that drew people to him. Women described him as having hypnotic eyes. His piercing blue eyes were said to have an almost supernatural power, making people feel as though he could see into their souls. Mesmerizing presence. His physical presence, combined with a confident demeanor, created a sense of awe and fascination. 2. Reputation as a mystic and healer. Rasputin's reputation as a holy man gave him a powerful aura of spiritual authority. Many women believed he could forgive sins. Women who sought redemption were often vulnerable to his suggestion that intimacy was a form of spiritual cleansing. He could heal. His perceived ability to heal the sick, especially Tsarevich Alexei, elevated him to a godlike status in their eyes. 3. Exploitation of vulnerabilities. Emotional needs. Many of the women who came to Rasputin were emotionally troubled or seeking solace, and he was adept at exploiting their insecurities. Sense of connection. His ability to listen deeply and offer personalized advice created an intimate bond that some mistook for romantic or spiritual love. 4. Manipulation of religious beliefs. Rasputin's philosophy that sinning and repenting brought one closer to God gave him a pretext to engage in debauchery. While maintaining his image as a spiritual guide, he used religious rhetoric to convince women that intimacy with him was a divine experience or a path to spiritual awakening. 5. Contradictory nature. Rough yet tender. His blend of rustic simplicity and profound spiritual insight created an alluring duality. Women from noble families were particularly fascinated by his stark contrast to the refined, predictable men of their social circles. Rebel appeal. His disregard for societal norms and conventions made him seem like a figure of liberation and rebellion. 6. Power and influence. Rasputin's closeness to the Romanov family gave him an aura of untouchable authority, which some women found irresistible. Being associated with him could elevate one's status in court or provide access to powerful circles. 7. Sexual magnetism and reputation. Rasputin was rumored to be highly virile, and his reputation as a passionate lover likely preceded him. These rumors likely encouraged women to seek him out, intrigued by his notoriety. His unorthodox approach to sexuality, blending mysticism with physical intimacy, fascinated women who were unfulfilled, bored in their traditional relationships. 8. Social and cultural context. Openness to mysticism. The Russian aristocracy of the time was deeply fascinated by spiritualism and mysticism, making Rasputin's eccentricities appear exotic and alluring. Disillusionment with the status quo. Many women in rigid societal roles saw Rasputin as a means to break free from their monotonous lives. Rasputin's success in seducing women was not merely about physical attraction. It was a mix of his psychological manipulation, spiritual mystique, and the social vulnerabilities of his time. He exploited a perfect storm of personal charisma and widespread fascination with mysticism to entangle women in his orbit. Would you like further details on any of these points? Examples of how these factors played out with specific women. Rasputin's claims of spirituality and healing powers, as well as his authority in such matters, remain highly debated. He was neither a certified medical practitioner, nor a formally recognized spiritual leader. but he operated in a grey area where mysticism, charisma, and the desperation of others granted him influence. Here's a breakdown of the reality behind his perceived authority. 1. Spirituality claims basis in charismatic authority. Rasputin was widely regarded as a starets, wandering holy man, which in early 20th century Russia carried a certain level of religious and spiritual credibility. However, he had no formal theological training or ties to the Russian Orthodox Church hierarchy. Healing reputation. His apparent ability to help alleviate Tsarevich Alexei's hemophilia symptoms strengthened his reputation as a divinely inspired healer. Historians suggest this effect was likely psychological. His calming presence reduced Alexei's stress, which in turn mitigated symptoms like internal bleeding. 2. Healing and medical claims. No medical training. Rasputin had no formal education or medical background. His methods were unorthodox and lacked any scientific basis. Possible use of hypnosis. Some experts speculate that Rasputin may have unconsciously used techniques resembling hypnosis to influence people, particularly to reduce pain or anxiety. Alexei's case. Rasputin's interventions often coincided with periods of natural remission in Alexei's condition. His advice to halt medical interventions like aspirin, then used as a painkiller, may have helped, as aspirin is a blood thinner that could have worsened the boy's hemophilia. 3. Proven or debated spiritual practices. Unverifiable miracles. Many of Rasputin's supposed spiritual feats, such as healing powers or visions, lack empirical evidence. Most of these accounts come from anecdotal reports, often from people who were either his supporters or detractors. Manipulation of belief. Rasputin leveraged the mystical and religious fervor of the time, promoting the idea that sin, repentance and forgiveness brought people closer to God. His followers were often people looking for spiritual or emotional solace rather than tangible proof. 4. Influence over the Romanovs. Desperation of the Tsarina. Alexandra's unwavering belief in Rasputin stemmed from her desperation to save Alexei and her deep religious faith. Her trust in him was more emotional than based on any verified evidence of his abilities. Political and religious criticism. Church leaders and medical experts of the time often dismissed Rasputin as a charlatan. His rise was viewed as a sign of the monarchy's weakness and gullibility. 5. Reasons for his authority. Timing and context. Rasputin's rise occurred during a period of widespread belief in mysticism and spiritual healing, making his claims more palatable. Charismatic manipulation. He was adept at exploiting the fears, faith and desperation of others to solidify his influence. His charm and audacity created the illusion of authority. Perception over proof. Rasputin relied on anecdotal success stories and the subjective experiences of those he helped. The lack of scientific or medical scrutiny at the time allowed such claims to persist unchallenged. Rasputin's authority was not grounded in proven spirituality or medical expertise, but rather in the perceptions of his followers, particularly the Romanovs. His ability to position himself as a healer and mystic came from exploiting psychological and social factors rather than demonstrable skills.